Hey. Hello, everyone. Okay, I want to start this off, first of all, with a correction on the last video. On the last video, I took everyone through what it meant that Will Smith has resigned from the Academy. First of all, let me say what that absolutely does mean. What that means in terms of what he's allowed to do with the Academy now, he isn't allowed to vote, okay? Now, I had said that what that had meant was combining things like he isn't allowed to he's allowed to attend, he's not allowed to be nominated, all that type of stuff. That not true. So he is still allowed to do everything except vote, which essentially means very, very little in the grand scheme of things. I apologize, but that is a correction from what I said on the last video. Someone corrected me, so yes, I look at the comments. If I get something wrong in the comments, do please let me know. But I wanted to look at this and look. I can't believe that I'm talking about Whoopi Goldberg. I hate like as far as the people that are especially on The View. That is such a nauseating program, just daytime television. But I am talking about this because Whoopi Goldberg is making a lot of statements about what is kind of going on behind the scenes. And since she is a high-ranking member of the Academy, and apparently I am pretty sure this is a lot of, give me your notes if you know more about this than I'm seeming to. But from what I've seen, she is a member at a level where she is more than likely going to be helping out when it comes to, she'll be in the discussions. She'll be in the discussions in terms of what's going on. So if we see a bunch of commentary from people saying, here's what this means, and here's what that means, and here's what this means, and here's what that means, you know what? Not everyone, when they say, here's what's going to happen, here's what is not going to happen, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot unless it really comes from a very high-ranking member, which I will say she does seem to be. So whenever Whoopi Goldberg says something, you do kind of have to pay attention because she might actually be able to do something in those meetings that makes an impact on what's going on. So what she said is that, you know, all the doomsdayers about Will Smith that necessarily don't have a leg to stand on because he's going to be absolutely fine. Now, I don't necessarily think that I'm trying to figure out, is that someone behind the scenes coming out to say, hey, I'm on the board, I know what these people are talking about, or is this kind of delusional? Because there's more that comes up later in the story that makes it seem like she is kind of delusionally talking her way through how, I don't think they know exactly how impactful what happened last week was. And again, if you're just joining, essentially the reason that I think the Will Smith slap is important is because so many people see Hollywood as being silly, as being unserious, as being disconnected from the culture. And for someone to get up and behave like that in front of millions and millions of people, effectively doing something that will then be shown to maybe close to 1 billion people, shows an even larger disconnect. Makes everyone that had any respect left for Hollywood go, whoa, these people are sad. And just kind of, it breaks all of the illusion. So while a lot of people are like, whoa, can you believe he slapped him? That was crazy. That was funny. Like, yes, it is crazy. It is funny. But I think there's something more going on in terms of why we're still talking about it. And I think it's going to be important to follow Will Smith's career to essentially say, okay, so one of the biggest, most likable stars in all of Hollywood just did something that made him unlikable immediately, something where he showed genuine anger. Look, I'm going to say this. If you see someone show genuine anger, that takes all the air out of the room. And look, if you're an entertainer, it takes you years and years to build up a reputation of being the nice guy, the likable guy. That can all go away in a second. And when it goes away, I think it's going to take a long time to get that back. But essentially, what is it going to be like? Is it actually going to be something that he's going to be able to get back easily? Well, I'll be like, hey, it's fine. In which case, I think would pretty much say it's sad then that, you know, people in Hollywood can actually do whatever they want and have no real consequences. I think it would be a breath of fresh air. I think it'd be a move in the right direction if something like this happens. And the response really from the public, the response from the industry is no. Things actually have consequences. If you're going to behave a certain way, then you're not going to be able to stick around. You're at least going to have to face some type of punishment, and it's going to be because people back at home, they don't go for that. Like, it's kind of like Hollywood has to recognize that there are certain things that people back at home watching are not going to stand for. So I think that if it kind of follows, and I'll get into this now, but if it goes the way that Whoopi Goldberg is saying it will, and she goes, hey, he'll be fine, nothing's going to happen, then I don't think that's a good idea. But also, I think that might be her being a little delusional. So the article says Whoopi Goldberg asked and answered her own question about Will Smith's future yesterday on The View, practically rolling her eyes as she read the setup question for the hot topic discussion on Smith's career. She said, "Some of Will Smith's future projects are in question," Goldberg said, reading the intro. "The question is, does he have a path back?" After chuckling at her own question, she quickly followed with a dismissive, "Yes, of course he does. He'll be fine. He'll be back. No worries." Now, in terms of what does that actually look like? Because this is something I talked about on the last stream. Look, there have been tons of people. Whether you agree with what happened with these celebrities or not, you cannot deny the fact that Mel Gibson kicked out of Hollywood, Roman Polanski kicked out of Hollywood. Both of them kind of came back on a long path of having to do their own thing. Mel Gibson went away, spent his own money on multi-million-dollar movies that were incredible, which allowed him to then come back into the fold. Roman Polanski was still making money, still getting Oscars, but he had to leave the country. He had to make all those movies in Europe. He wasn't allowed to come to the United States. And I mean, that one's weird that they let him back. That one's very weird that they let him back. But look, this kind of like flippant, oh, Will Smith's going to be back. Don't worry. I think she might have a point there, but also I really don't think that there's going to be a way that he's going to be able to come back without years and years of having to do something outside of the system. And whenever I say work outside the system, I mean that, you're not, Will Smith is so in the system right now that whatever he wants to get done is going to be funded and is going to kind of roll along easily. By being outside of the system, I mean, he's probably going to have to put more at stake. Okay. I understand. Yes. Pounds and everything is saying misunderstood Whoopi. I get that what she is saying is essentially that he's going to be fine. He's going to be okay. What I'm saying is that I think the nicest way you could take her comments, well, not nicest, I would say to the extent that I agree with her, I would have to say it still requires consequences. I understand that what she's saying kind of has the assumption that there will be no consequences, and I think that that is wrong. I also think that that is very delusional. Pounds and everything also said Will Smith is going to face everything. I think he will. Pounds and everything says sounds like you want Will Smith's career to be over. I'm not excited about Will Smith's career being over. I mean, if you told me before the Oscars happened that Will Smith is not going to make another movie or anything like that, that would, I would say that would suck. After doing what he did, I don't. No, I don't. I think he's kind of ruined his. I think he could have even played it in a way after it happened. I think he could have done certain things that made his image a little bit more likable, made his image a little bit like, if he had that after party and we see him dancing to his own music, it's like you seem weird now. He did so much stuff afterwards that made him seem so strange that it really ruins the image that he had. Look, I'd love for him to rebuild the image. I think he could have done it that night, but he didn't. So yeah, I'd like for him to regain the image that he had the night before the Oscars. And I don't know if that's going to be able to happen without him going away for a long time and having kind of a return. Nothing went wrong with Matthew McConaughey, but remember Matthew McConaughey went away for years and then came back and did great work. I mean, do that. You're going to have to go away for a long time though, if you want to kind of come back in the same way at all that you used to. Hey, Fuzz Aldrin, how's it going? Good to see you. So then, after Goldberg's intro, co-host Anna Navarro said, "I'm so tired of talking about this. I'd like to slap myself." What in the world? That show is so insufferable. That's not even funny. Adding that she'd prefer to be talking about Clarence and Ginny Thomas, but recognizes that the slap has become a cultural talking point. That's the other thing. I get that there are a lot of people like the girl from West Side Story, Daniel Radcliffe. There's so many people that are saying, "Why are we still talking about this? Why are we still doing this?" I get why they're saying that, especially people that are in the industry. If you're in the industry, you're not really allowed to have an opinion because you're allowed to have an opinion if it kind of follows the line that's been said. This is what you're allowed to say. This is what you have to say. This is how you're allowed to say it. Don't deviate from that. If you deviate from that, then you're going to be punished. That's essentially what's going on over there. So I get why a lot of, it seemed like the smart thing to say that we're not going to talk about it. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. There's so much implicated in this in terms of the fractured relationship that Hollywood has with the audience. You can see it in all of the memes that are coming out of this. You can see it in the way that everyone stood for the applause. And that's something I'll get to here in a second because they talk about that too. And everyone is essentially like, didn't he just beat someone up on TV? Why did that happen? Why are they defending that they applauded other people? I don't get I don't get why people are like, well, why would we talk about this anymore? It's like, no, there's more going on here than just the memes, although the memes are hilarious. Then they also went on to say he's had over 30 years of a career where he's had a very positive image, but a positive role model, and he's been philanthropic. He's done all sorts of things. None of us should be judged by our worst moment. And, that was something that Denzel Washington said too. We shouldn't be judged, or he was talking about what the devil makes you do and all that stuff. And what else was he saying? I forget the other thing he said about Will Smith. But the problem I have with that is that that industry is so unforgiving. They're so without grace when it comes to anything outside of the industry. For you to then say, well, a member of our own did something that humiliated himself and all of us in front of the largest, most prominent, what we like to think of the most honoring stage in the entire industry, the biggest night of our industry. Let's just forgive him with what's going on. It's like, what's going now? We live in a culture of forgiveness. What's going on here? No one else gets the culture of forgiveness. Why does Will Smith get it? I think that's another layer of what's going on and why this is such a cultural big deal. A little bit more, a few of the comments. That's what I'm saying. Not Anonymous says, I was fond. I think you're saying, I was fond of Will. No more. I think a lot of people are feeling that way. The more that there's kind of this silence, there is a silence in terms of what's going on. And you can feel that the Academy, because they have to make a decision, they say they're going to make it. They're kind of implying that they're going to make it on April 18th. And that's whenever they'll talk about, is he going to no longer be allowed to be nominated? Is he no longer allowed to kind of be part of these events, essentially cutting off a lot of his business ties within the industry, or a lot of the incentives to do business within the industry. I think that we're going to have to look to see what they say about that. And I think that they're trying to make it so that, days, weeks pass, and then everyone will stop talking about this. Instead, I think everyone is making fun of it, and it's becoming funnier and funnier, and which making them seem sillier and sillier. If they actually come back and they say, well, we'll let him off with a slap on the wrist, which I don't think they're going to. But if that is what they do, then I think that the Academy, who, don't forget, was kind of found to be lying about how they did not actually ask Will Smith to leave when they said to everyone, we told him to leave. And then it turned out that was a lie. So, the Academy's on shaky ground. We'll see what they do. Then what? Pounds Everything said the slap wasn't that deep. The slap itself wasn't necessarily that deep. I think that culturally there is something more going on. It's not necessarily, yes, you could describe it as just one millionaire slapping another millionaire. I don't know, to another degree, I think that it is an industry that is seen as very silly in the country and is still the largest exporter of entertainment. And it's being taken less and less and less seriously. And essentially all these award shows, I think, are now going to be massively devalued. Everyone here, I'm guessing, already knew that they were massively devalued, already saw them that way. I think this kind of was the close. Years from now, I think whenever we look back, we're going to be like, yeah, no, whenever he did that, that was kind of the close. That was kind of the end of the respectable period. I think so. I'm not saying that, we can see the world in this one event, but I think it is a very immediate, a very important moment in kind of the timeline of Hollywood, the respectability of Hollywood. Let's see a few other comments here. Will needs to take a year or two, probably does. Will Smith has a lot of built up anger. He very clearly does. Go to a professional therapist. The humiliation is huge. It is most definitely huge. Then Whoopi Goldberg went on the day before. And again, if you're just joining, the reason that Will Smith is, I'm sorry, not Will Smith. The reason I'm talking about Whoopi Goldberg, she is kind of one of the major members of the Academy when it comes to the terms of what's going to happen to him, who's going to be making the decisions. She's a big part of how that's going to happen because she's very high up in the Academy. Pounds and Everything said Will Smith resigned from the Academy. He did. All that means is he can vote the Academy on the 18th whenever they make their decision. Really, I think what they have to do is they have to be the ones to say, well, okay, you resigned so you don't have to vote, but we're telling you you're actually banned, which means you can't win an Oscar, which means you're not allowed to come to these events. Essentially means it means a lot more if they tell him you are out, essentially. So then Whoopi Goldberg then went on later because a bunch of people were not only, commenting on Will Smith, they were also saying, well, it's not fair that everyone's making fun of people that stood up. Hey, everyone stood up and they applauded Will Smith for what it is that he did. So people were like, that's ridiculous. Why would y'all do that? He smacked, like Jim Carrey said it. He's like, you all were spineless. You stood up for something like that. She went on to say that you're not allowed to kind of group in. She said, don't call Hollywood elites. She said, you're not allowed to do that. She says, well, let's see. Where is it here? Where is it here? Where is it here? She said, the actress who's back on The View after suspension because she already made some comments she got in trouble for. She is a governor of the Academy branch because she won an Oscar. She said, I'm sorry, as one of the people, one of her co-hosts had said that Hollywood is just a group of elites. And then Whoopi Goldberg stopped her and said, look, as one of those people, I've got to stop you right there and say that you can't say that. She said, I want to stop with all of this elite stuff because a lot of us work for a living. She said, insisting that while some are making $1 million, that is not everyone in the industry. She says, it really pisses me off when people start talking about people who work in Hollywood, not just actors, but all the other folk. So please stop talking about all of us as if we are elites. If you want to talk about actors, just talk about actors. And then she said that it's almost the same thing as equating it to racism, which I don't get it all. Essentially, I will say in the way that some people are saying, well, there's not that much depth that went into the slap. It's like, I get what you mean. Culturally, I think we're going to look back on it as a much more important thing. In terms of what's going on here, this is an interesting point because seeing how people in Hollywood seem to not like to be referred to as elite, the way that everyone is like, why would everyone in that room stand up and applaud him after what he did? I think it's interesting that would offend to kind of point out why that happened. And a lot of people in the industry that have defended that, saying we should have stood up, we should have applauded him. When a lot of people like, that's ridiculous. That I just thought that was also a strange moment to see someone that is kind of at the highest level of the industry not wanting to be referred to as elite, especially when they're on a TV show where they are essentially broadcasting their opinions. They're being paid millions of dollars to broadcast their opinions to America, and they're saying, don't call me a member of the elite class whenever I'm sitting over here on the board. I haven't won an Oscar in the last 30 years, but I'm actually not a member of the elite, even though I'm like riding on this like old high that no one remembers anymore. I thought that was very, very strange. But in terms of, so Whoopi Goldberg's essentially saying he's going to be fine. He's going to be perfectly fine. I don't think that's true. Last time we talked, I said that Netflix had dropped one of their movies that they were working tirelessly on to get done. And then the slap happens. Nah, we're not doing that anymore. And then you have, what was the other? Apple TV. They still have not said if they're going to stop the movie they already filmed with Will Smith, but the indications from this report are that they very well might. So Netflix and Apple TV dropped their plans for a Will Smith biopic after the slap happened. So there was going to be a Will Smith biopic. There was essentially a bidding war over what was going to happen. Essentially, that means, I don't know if it was based on Will Smith's book or whatever. He optioned the rights to his life or something like that. And essentially, like if Martin Scorsese has a movie, if Mel Gibson has a movie, if Leonardo DiCaprio has a movie, they put it up to see if someone wants it, if there's a lot of interest. So Netflix will say, we'll pay $150 million. Apple says, we'll do $160 million. And they're all bidding for it. So essentially, everyone was bidding a ton of money. Netflix, Apple, Paramount, Sony, they're all bidding money. They want the Will Smith movie. And now the two of the biggest players in the industry, Netflix and Apple TV, are saying, never mind, we don't want to make the movie anymore. We don't want to do it anymore. So just an interesting, and that's really the only interesting thing I think remaining from the Will Smith thing, other than, Apple making their decision and the Academy saying whether or not they're going to ban him, and kind of what the implication is for how people will respect Hollywood based on how they deal with this situation, because they've dealt with it terribly so far. But yeah, they're not making his movie anymore, or at least it looks like no one wants to pay for the movie anymore to work on. So I just thought that was very strange. I don't think it's not going well. It's not going well in terms of if what Hollywood thinks is going to happen still seems to not really equal up to what the public thinks should happen. I think in general, most people think that he was wrong. I feel like that ship has kind of sailed, and most of it is just a joke now. So saw that, kind of wanted to go live, tell you guys about it. If there's anything else y'all want to talk about, we can do so. Probably going to put out a few more videos here about, there was an Oscar director that just got sued. Someone that won an Oscar got sued for plagiarism and lost. Like, he literally plagiarized a movie that was up for an Oscar. Like, there's been worse and worse news coming out about the Academy. Well, thank you everyone that's been watching. If you would like to subscribe, got a comment actually. I think they applauded Will Smith because they know him personally and they know that isn't his true character, but something on him has snapped. I mean, that's true. Another point of why I think most people are kind of worried, or would not see him as a great guy anymore, is that if someone is willing to slap someone in front of 10 million people, I don't know how much of a nice guy you have to be then behind closed doors. That just needs to be, yeah, Will Smith does need to apologize on video to Chris Rock. And then you know what? I think all of this pretty much goes away. So if you haven't subscribed to 5 Minute Critic, subscribe for future updates on reviews and movie news. We've got a review of Royal Tenenbaums coming up soon. Got a lot of older movies coming up that we're going to be talking about here coming in the next few weeks. Also, there's more news every Friday we break down on the Patreon. That's $5 a month. The description is below if you want to support the channel. $5 a month goes a long way, but even just everyone that's subscribing and watching really means the world. Thank you guys so much. Comment with anything else you want to see discussed, reviewed, and yes, of course, subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.